Hello, and we are live. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening to you all. I'm so excited to have you guys here tonight for Propel. So, if you are here for the first time, thank you and welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. We've got a very special guest that we're going to be talking
Mhm.
to and sharing with a little bit later. And if you are back, if you've joined us before, thank you for coming back. Thank you for joining us again on Propel. I am Stephanie Mara, and I'm your host. I'll be facilitating the conversation tonight with our special guest. And again, just super excited that you're here. I feel like I want to say happy holidays, right?
I know, right?
It is early November. I know several people that are already starting their, trees and all that good stuff. You go into the stores. I was in a store the other day and I heard Christmas carols. So I think I can say safely happy holidays to you all from wherever you are. So for those of you that are joining, if you would in the chat, if you put where you're from, we'd love to acknowledge you and recognize you in your area tonight, wherever you're joining us from tonight on the broadcast. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. I'm super excited really about this platform, and which is going to lead me to talk a little bit about it before I introduce Erica tonight and get into the conversation. So, quite naturally, we have had, the pandemic and lots of restrictions around meeting. And for those of us that are in, service-based, industries in terms of entrepreneurship, it's been really hard to find ways to show up. I thrive a whole
Mhm.
lot on face-to-face connection. And so we've had to, really pivot in a lot of ways. And now everything is happening virtually. Everything in life is happening virtually. You're working virtually, going to school, going to church, socializing, family reunions. I mean, you name it, everything is happening virtually. And so Propel is the way or the opportunity or the avenue that we've chosen to really show up and to continue to serve our tribe since we cannot be face to face. Last year, we
Mhm.
host quarterly meetups, which were absolutely amazing. It was a time for the women to come together to connect throughout the year. Because one of the things that I learned with doing the yearly Making History in Hills event is that I learned that people wanted to be in community more often. And so I started the quarterly meetup as an opportunity and a way for women to be able to connect. And so, just thinking, how can I show up and serve? How can I continue to connect with other amazing women doing, great things across the globe, really. And so I had this idea in my heart for a while to start this series. And
Mm.
Hill was with me and had been with me for a really long while. So if you just think about what it means actually to propel. And then, the subtitle, Leading Edge Conversations, to me, the leading edge is the place that you approach when you step out of the comfort zone. When you're in that comfort zone space, that is the space or the place that is populated heavily. There are lots of people there. There's lots happening. Everyone is there in the comfort zone. But it is for those that have the courage. I often say, really, it's just the courage. I don't know what else to call it. The
Mhm.
courage, the the tenacity, all of those things to really step out of that comfort zone and to move toward that leading edge. Because I believe that it is the leading edge where purpose happens. It is the
Yes.
edge where destiny unfolds. It is the leading edge where we come into contact with God's best for our lives. That doesn't happen while we are seated or seated comfortably in our comfort zones. And by the way, I
Mm.
want you guys to think about this. Comfort zones are perceived comfort zones. I don't know anybody that's happy in a comfort zone. I don't know anyone that's comfortable in a comfort zone. So even the term comfort zone is an oxymoron, right?
Mm.
That's a sidebar. But nonetheless, these leading edge conversations with fearless, with these limitless, fearless leaders. When we think about limits, a lot of times when we want to jump out, Erica, and launch into our stuff, there are so many barriers and so many limits.
Mhm.
In terms of, I mean, we could make a whole list of just limits. But when we think about the limitless leader, she is the woman that has moved past those limits. She's moved those barriers. She's removed those barriers. It doesn't mean that they weren't there. It just means that she's decided to move through them, to move around them, to move under them. But she's made her way out to that leading edge, and she has moved away from that comfort zone, right? She has
Yes.
limits. And so sometimes, you see people operating in their stuff. Les Brown says we all have stuff. So we see
Mm-hmm.
a tiny version of people's stuff, and we don't realize the work that has gone into moving past those barriers and limits that has
Mm.
led out to that leading edge. You see what I'm saying? And so
Yes.
that's what this platform and that's what this broadcast is about, to really facilitate those conversations with women who are looking to connect with other women on the leading edge. Or maybe you're, that woman in the comfort zone and you're saying, hey,
Mm.
life is good, I'm comfortable, but I feel like I'm being called to do a little bit more and I don't even know where to start. That is who
Mm.
podcast is for. So those are the voices, and those are the women, and that we want to connect. We want our voices to connect with through this work. So I said all that to say tonight, we've got an incredible guest that's going to be featured, that's going to be sharing in this conversation with us tonight, Erica Michelle Bailey. And I'm going to read just a little bit about the purpose development before she dives in. So Erica helps women awaken and ignite their God-given gifts by empowering them to dream bigger, create bigger, execute, ultimately live bigger. She harnesses over 20 years of customer service experience along with over a decade of leadership experience. Combining those two gifts together, she helps others to identify the dormant gifts and talents on the inside of them. Her unique
Yes.
various experiences have afforded her to partner in raising and training up leaders in various environments. She often shares her story of surrendering to her purpose assignment and returning back to higher education at 40 years old after being out of school for over 20 plus years. We could stop right there and just talk
Right
about
there. Right there. Right there.
certain God is using her voice and this experience to inspire and just connect with women of all ages for them, to push past those barriers that I was just talking.
Hmm.
So welcome to Propel tonight, Erica Michelle Bailey.
Good night. Thank you for having me. Hmm.
So excited to just connect. Now I have, had the opportunity to connect with Erica online, like I have so
Hmm.
many other incredible women. I'm so thankful for the social media space because I'm
Yes.
able to connect with some, and just some amazing women all over the country, and even in other countries, in this country and other countries that I normally would not have had an opportunity or just had the access to. So I'm very thankful for, for social media in that regard. So
Yes. The same for me.
yeah, so Erica's brand is this girl got purpose. So Erica, I
Hmm.
want you to talk a little bit about what it means or what comes to mind when you hear the term limitless leader as you think about the work that you do there at This Girl's Got Purpose.
Yes. So when I think about that, I have to be, it's honest. Like honesty is all I know, transparency. And the reason I can be is because I haven't always been that leader, right? I've
Yeah.
been a leader before. I've been in management and higher, management before, but to be fearless and to be, and not just fearless, I'm sorry, to be limitless, meaning there is no restrictions, right?
Mhm.
Like I can break past that ceiling that is often put in place in our lives, whether it's in our career path, whether it's in our, in the faith base, in the marketplace, in wherever you are, somewhere is going to try to box you in. So I think about that word limitless, unrestricted, living outside the box. I've learned how to color outside the line. And I know for some people that can be a little messy. But the honest truth is out coloring outside that line has caused me to not be ashamed of what's not normal, what's just supposed to be my area.
Yeah, I think it's so important. You talked a little bit about those boxes, and I don't remember even where I read the saying, but I read something years ago that said, "Be careful about boxes because people love to put you in boxes, and be
Mm-hmm.
careful, boxes are shaped like coffins, and
Come on.
you know what we do with coffins, right? And just that." Um, it just happens. I don't know why,
Mhm.
why our nature is, as human beings to label or to put boxes or to put restrictions or to be able to say, well, Erica can do this, but Erica could really probably never accomplish that, or Erica can have this, but Erica could never have that. And so
Mhm.
what I think really happens for, that woman, or how, or, talk a little bit about some of those strategies for removing those barriers and removing those limits and moving past those limits. What does it
Yeah.
look like for you? Or what does it look like? Because I believe that it's
Yes.
a work in progress, right?
Exactly. Yes. And so I will never forget the moment, and this is real deal. Like, I will never forget this conversation that I feel like I have these conversations with God. So this is not spiritual, it's just really a relationship based type of conversation. And I remember often I used to say, I'm just going to protect myself, right? Whether it's in relationship, business, whatever. I'm gonna protect myself. And before I knew it, what I thought I was putting up as walls for protection became the like I was in prison. I had imprisoned myself because thinking, if I put up this wall, they won't hurt me no more. They won't be able to take, my idea. They won't be able to step on my toe. They won't be able to offend me. And Holy Spirit told me, like, what you started out as being a barrier of protection has become your prison. So
Oh,
now you have this box around you. You can't get out and no one can get in. So what are you going to do? And so I never forget taking this picture. And it was years ago, my first real little photo shoot, hired me a photographer. And I took a picture, and years later, it gave me revelation. Behind me was it was like a bar, it was closure behind me, but it was bars. And it was a part of going into a gate. And Holy Spirit said, look at that picture. You know both sides of that. You know what it is to be behind those bars because you created them. And
uh-huh.
then you know now what it is to live outside of those bars. So when I think about maybe a step, if I had to give you a step that I would take, the first thing that I would have to say is that you have to be honest with yourself, right? So we can say he did it, she did it, they did it. But the honest truth of the matter, most boxes are self-created. Now, people come along and help you put some walls and windows and that top on it.
Absolutely.
But most of them are self-created, whether it's a mindset,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's an environment that we live in, right? Because I knew what it was to struggle. So I'm not gonna let nobody take my stuff because I know what struggle's like. So we can help in that form. But just being, I believe my first step was that revelation of saying, wow, I
Yeah.
did I did that.
Yeah. And I think that's
Mhm.
so hard because once again, our natural inclination is to point outward or to say that it was someone or some circumstance or something,
Mhm.
anything other than ourselves. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes even as, when you think about from a faith or a spiritual perspective, you know, uh, my grandmother said the devil gets blamed for everything.
Mhm.
Big Mama
Mhm.
said, "Oh, devil is at home sleeping. Y'all over here blaming him for everything because it's
Mhm.
so easy to place blame, and
Mhm.
it's not our nature to spend that time in self reflection or to say,
Yes.
well, there are some things that have happened to me that haven't been the best, and yeah, I've had some, really tragic events, or I've experienced and taken some hits, or I've had some losses. All of that, it's happened to all of us. But the
Yes.
reality is, like you said, I still have some options. I still have some choices, and I still get to choose how I respond to what has happened to me. And so,
Yes.
limits, these barriers that we have,
Mm.
they're self-created, they're self-imposed, and I love that it's just kind of a, like you said, just a first step. If we're thinking
Yes.
moving through a process, the first step is to, kind of accept responsibility. In my signature program, step one is acceptance, and it's so funny that
Yes. That's
there's
good.
thing around acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean that, things can't change or that you're in some circumstance and you're just happy, to be there. But you've got to be able to move from a place of acceptance because anything
Mhm.
else, because it creates after its kind. So being in denial,
Yes.
You know, like you said, not being not willing to be honest. I love the part you said about that honesty with ourselves. You
Yes.
know, and being able to hold ourselves to a high standard. Sharon Boyd says it is painful to look within. It is absolutely painful to
It
look
is.
within. But I can tell you that it is the most, that is where you're going to get your answers. That's
Yes.
going to get your, I mean, that is where it is. And so I love that. I love that. I love that. So talk
Yeah.
about once we've kind of done some of that inner work, and I know
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the coaching and training a lot
Yes.
myself around just the mindset, because the mind
Mm-hmm.
is the hardest thing to change. Once
Yes.
we change the mind, then everything else starts to take form, right? Starts to
Yes.
follow.
Mm-hmm.
That mind work. It's the hard work. You know, a lot of
Yes.
people get into these spaces and you see, like I said, you see the bells, the whistles, the great logos,
Mm.
the website, the graphics, and you think that it's it. But hey, it's a mindset that has to be developed and fortified before you
Yes.
move to that next level. So once we
Yes.
begin to take some personal responsibility for removing those self-imposed barriers, where,
Mm-hmm.
where can we go next?
From there, I always speak about forgiveness
Mm,
because, listen, when once we become, I shared recently, and this is a known statement. It says, like, and I would tell the kids even growing up, like, once you know to do better, right? Then you're held accountable. Okay, so you get away with it up until that point that you get the knowledge or the wisdom thereof. And so when you start to do self work before you forgive anybody else, you have to forgive yourself, because forgiving yourself says, you give yourself permission to be free in this space. No longer am I in boxes. No longer am I behind these walls. No longer am I, the things that I was told or I believed about myself.
mm,
So freedom can't be given to someone else until forgiveness, I'm sorry, can't be given, not honestly, meaning forgiveness, like truly forgiven, not that forgiveness where I forgive you, but I'll never forget. No, I'm talking about where you can forgive them, forget them, right? And
mm,
still have peace in your life. So I always believe that after I do that self reflection, it's time for me to forgive myself.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's so easy to, that's part of that prison that we create for ourselves, is harboring
Hmm.
a lot of unforgiveness within ourselves. And
Yes.
here's what I now know about things like forgiveness and even grace, right? Or, you hear people say, "Oh, I'm so hard on myself."
Hmm.
The reality is when you are hard or critical of yourself, you carry that with other when you interact with other people. Like, you
Hmm.
don't deserve that for your, so if you don't give yourself grace, you
Yes.
probably don't extend it to other people. You don't
Yes.
turn grace on and off. I can have it for me, but I ran out for you. Or I have some for you, but I ran a little short when I needed it for myself. And so
Yes.
when you realize, because the reality is you can only give what you have.
Yes.
Like he says, when you have that ability to really forgive yourself for remaining for the time that you were ignorant, like you said,
Hmm.
when you didn't know,
Hmm.
supposed to believe, the lies or just whatever untruths or whatever stories, whatever narrative was serving you at the time, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
to not believe that, you've chosen to create a new narrative. You got in the pen and you're rewriting a different story. And so being able, to do that is it's so necessary. It's hard. It's kind of like looking within, like Sharon said before, it's very painful, but it's very necessary. And it's
Yes.
because we can't give to other people what we don't have, I guess is what I'm
Mm,
recap.
that's good.
And so we
That's good.
have it for ourselves, and we have to have it for ourselves first. Like
First.
we can't extend anything outward that we don't have full possession of inward. Like it's a violation of natural law. Like, where are you going to get grace for them when you don't have access to it for yourself?
Exactly. But here's the thing that I've learned as well. And that's why often you meet them in one setting, they're this way, but then in another setting, they're another way, because truly they're not walking in the truth of, and it's nothing to speak bad about anyone. Is what I'm saying is that, like you said, until until I learn how to give grace to me, what I extend is really not grace to others, is more of a tolerance. Like I'll tolerate you for a little while. I'll give you a little leeway, but don't ask for much. Grace
Yes.
has no, it extends beyond the borders,
Yes.
right? Oh yeah. So I agree with you 100%.
I like that. So, Erica, talk a little bit about why it is important for women to take the time to really figure out, discover, or we could go on with a list of synonyms, like their stuff that, like,
Yes.
pieces that we were called here to do. When God created you, and you think about purpose. Sometimes people think purpose is like a place that you arrive at.
Come on and teach tonight.
But I do. I think people, because you say it, you just hear it in conversation. I'm looking for purpose. Well, purpose was never really lost. Like life happened, and it may be, it may not be discoverable right now. We got to work to bring it back to the surface, because we were all created the same. And I use an analogy in one of my books about how, if I let myself into my house with my keys, and I get in the house and now I can't find the keys. Well, I know that the keys are there because I use them to get in.
Yes.
He created us all with keys. We in the house, life is happening, it's unraveling, the vicissitudes of life are upon us. We can't find the keys, but they're there. So talk a little bit about why it is so important that women take the time, wherever they find themselves in life, come into contact, to close contact, and to be able to touch and articulate and walk through and live out their God-given purpose.
Yes, this I get like butterflies, because, and you see I'm smiling really hard because it really is a passionate place of mine. It's a place of intimacy for me. It is the place that when you realize that purpose is not a destination, that's the first big aha moment, right? Purpose for me, the way it's been explained to me through the Father, right, is purpose is a set of experiences, right? And those experiences have assignments attached to them. And those assignments show up in different seasons of our lives. And so if we're looking for a destination, a place, then you may miss the assignment, and you definitely will miss the season. And so when I realized that through the Word of God, I just went there and he reflected it to me and showed it to me there. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I say you reach purpose when you're done, because that means everything has been fulfilled to get to this place, right? Which we all know we're going to go there one day. So while we're living, these are experiences for us. These are places that we're supposed to be, and we're supposed to experience that. And if we embrace that, then we should be okay with the good and the bad, right? Because it says there's something, the scripture that says that like in each season there is a lesson. And so when I begin to realize that there was no destination here on earth, I begin to say, okay, being a mom, that's a part of my purpose, right? For that season. Being married, that's a part of my purpose, right? Going to this job, this career that I'm doing, that's a part of it. Although I want the big part to be just about me, it's never about you. Your purpose is not about you. Your purpose is about the people that are assigned to you, that you will meet along the path, right, of these assignments. So to answer, or to give a direct answer to what you're saying, why is it important? It's very important, because if you don't know your why is not because you was put here to be a mommy. Your why is whatever God said that you were to do in this earth. What are you, Stephanie, that's supposed to do in this earth? And if I try to do what you were called to do, then I miss what God called me to do. They may resemble, they may be cousins, but they're not Siamese twins. I don't have to look at what you're doing to dictate what I'm going to do if I know who I am and what it is I'm called to do. So knowing your why is so important. And I'm going to share this really quick about it's been 7+ years. I went on a 1 year sabbatical. I didn't plan it. Like, it wasn't like I wrote it out. It happened. Life happened. And I realized when I came to myself that I had been on a 1 year sabbatical. And it was I grew the most in that place. When I tell you it was a dry season, I'm talking about no friends, no social media, no, it was me, God, and trying to figure out what is really going on. And so I realized that it's important that we, as women, because we're talking about women, that we find those places. We find the place where you have to take a break. You find a place where you have to implement me time. And I'm not talking about nails and feet. I love all those things. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about, yes, I'm talking about where you really begin to say, you know what? I need to find out again, right? Doing the internal search. What's in here that needs to come out so that when I get to this next assignment, right, that I will not forfeit anything on this next assignment. So that's what I believe.
That's so key. Now, Erica, we can unpack all of this.
I know.
So you're talking and I'm jotting, and I am a teacher by trade, and I'm a teacher by spiritual gift. So I am, when you talk about this assignment, like, it is so important. The reality is, when we think about, a lot of times I think that people confuse purpose with a title or something of that sort. Like you said, to apply for a mom or a career woman or have a business or, an entrepreneur, all these things that are, all these images that we're inundated with. So I think that women think that it is about a role or a hat that you're wearing. The reality is, we say hello and goodbye to roles and titles many times throughout our lives. So you're married today, you're divorced tomorrow. You got a house full of kids today, you have an empty nest tomorrow. You're employed with a 6-figure income in a corner office today. Tomorrow, you're in the unemployment line with everybody else. Like, we say hello and goodbye many times. But I think about purpose. I think about who we are at our core. I think about who that part of us that shows up in every area of our lives. So wherever we are, there's something at the core. Now, I do believe that it progresses and that it changes. And that manifestation of it and the expression of it is not the same, because I teach, women that you don't have to stay how you start, because a lot of times we will start a thing and we'll feel tethered to that thing and on a new thing, something else that, the time for a shift, the season that you mentioned earlier has changed or has changed for that. And we're out of season. You got a swimsuit on and it's December. Or a coat on and it's May. And you're out of season, and then we wonder why we're frustrated or, hitting the brick wall, or we're not getting the desired outcomes. Well, partially we're out of season, and we haven't moved the assignment. I feel like the calling on our lives really grows and goes with time. Yes. But core, like you said, at the core, you'll find out where is it? And this is a key for women that are saying, that may be looking at this broadcast or this replay saying, I don't know what that is for me. Where is the place, what is the part of you that shows up in every area of your life?
Every area.
Every single area. It is without provocation. A lot of times it is with little coaching. It is with little training. It is a very natural proclivity toward it, And here's a sidebar. Nothing against the faith, but a lot of times people of faith they tether themselves to the fivefold. I can be this, that. That's not what we're talking about. There's so much purpose outside of what we see happening within the confines of the church walls. Yes. Right? And I believe that there is, when I look at what happens on a Sunday morning, sometimes people just come together to test their gifts with each other. But like, when has that gift been shown to the world? How has it been, if we're going to compel men to come, how's that gonna look? Because you see what I'm saying? So that's another broadcast too. But
that's great. That's good.
But think about what shows up at your core. What is the core? What is the core piece of you? For me, I didn't know, I couldn't articulate it for a long time. But I knew that I had been called to gather from a young age. I was a gatherer of people. and then
Mhm.
be a gatherer of women. And then
Mhm.
what happens when I gather these women? Whether, not even deliberately, a lot of times very unintentionally, and just by nature, was always about trying to get women to push themselves or see themselves in a greater space, in a greater way. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that I was teaching. I didn't have the
Mhm.
have that, like, I didn't know that that's what that was. But as I began to really peel back the layers, and that comes in your quiet times, like you were talking about those sabbaticals and those times of,
Mhm.
it's so crazy because I feel that one is coming for me. Uh,
Yes.
you
Life
know,
changing.
uh-huh. I think you can feel it before, it's really ordered. I think if you are in tune and you're just self-aware, that you can feel it, that it's time to,
Mhm.
kind of pull away, recalibrate, reset.
Yeah.
But think about that thing that you find yourself naturally gravitating toward. And the other part that I want to say, and then we'll move to the next question, is give yourself permission to
That's
to
good.
try, because sometimes we're made to feel that, we have to get it right the first time. And
Mm.
you may not. You might get it right. You might not get it right. Erica, talk about that. Has there
Yeah.
been some challenges on that
Woo.
journey?
Ye
Oops, thought it was going to be this, wasn't that?
yes.
Give
Yes.
yourself permission to explore. So talk a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, so thank you for that. But even in this time, as you read the short part of the bio, people think that, well, she's put in all of these years, or, all of these things. But here's the great thing about, I, if you need to identify purpose, right? It's like testing, right? Sometimes you pass the test, sometimes you don't. It didn't mean that you didn't apply yourself, because there's times I've studied for a test and I mean aced it, right? And sometimes I've studied for a test and flunked it. But what that did for me was it told me, okay, well, Erica, the way you study for this one, you cannot use the same tools for another one. So there's times that you're gonna have to try some different things, right?
Mhm.
Try to fall forward if you're gonna fall, right? You don't have to fall back and fall out. No, you can fall forward
Yes.
and you can catch yourself, and no one knows that, oh, that was a mess up, right? And so when I think about it, you talked about the core, and I'm like in myself saying, yes, I think that's the best way. But here's the thing: most women are fearful to go to the core, because what lives in the core? Truth. Truth. If we really go in the core of ourselves, there's truth that's dormant there. And if
Yes.
we awaken it, it causes us to have to answer to those things or really deal with those things. So I think about myself, my core has always been servant, not a servant, service. I've
Mhm.
always been great in serving others. And so first I was like, how does that look, God? What am I going to do serving people? Do you know people, how they treat you? But for years, he took me through serving other people. And you know why? Because he wanted me to know how to serve the women that one day I would serve. So don't be afraid of that core thing. If it's
Yeah.
an apple, let it be an apple, right? Don't try to make it an orange. Like, do what comes, like you say, natural, and then you perfect it. So perfection to me came with time, it came with failure, it came with hardship, obstacles, people walking out on you, people not supporting you. But the matter of the fact was, when I was done, I had a bigger muscle. The muscle was stronger. So the next time I would build another muscle, and the next time we'll build another muscle. So I love that whole conversation about the core. Don't be afraid of finding the core, and whatever you find there, then you have to decide if you're going to cultivate it. See, coaching and all of that, that's just cultivating what God already put inside of you. I said often, listen, if I'm your coach, I'm pulling out what's already in. If I'm your mentor, I'm gonna pour in what's from out of me into you. So that's the only thing, but it's already inside of there. It's there.
Yeah.
It's
It's so funny you say that. As an educator, I began to study the etymology of the word educate. And I
mm,
thought for many years, here I am in 25 years of service in public education. And for a really
mm,
long time, I thought my duty as an educator was to pour into the people. Like, I'm
mm,
student. I'm opening up and pouring in all of this knowledge. And it wasn't until I felt compelled to really look at the etymology of the word. It means to draw from. And
That's good.
he spoke to me and he said that the reservoir of greatness is already in the people. So your job as the educator, as the coach, the teacher, the trainer, whatever the hat, I'm wearing, is to draw from what I've already put, right?
Yeah.
And so often, but what do we draw from? Like you said, it is that core. So we've got to be in tune with that core. We've got to be able to clearly articulate what that core is. And I believe that when you can do that, then you can know what to cultivate, how to cultivate, that's where the growth factor comes in. How to begin to now work so that you can grow this gift. If you don't even know what it is, how do you know what you're growing? How do you know what coach to hire? How do you know who to link up with? And I'm like you said at the onset, I believe that, when we were created for this work, whatever that work looks like, that there were ears and that there were voices that were, ears really assigned to our voices in that work, And so in order for you to make that kind of divine connection, you've got to have the clarity. Clarity. It's like you can't, because the clarity helps to create the compass. Like, how do you even know where to go, what to do, who to align yourself with? So we said all that to say the clarity is key. And I would really admonish those of you that are watching tonight that don't have that clarity, go for the clarity.
Yes.
And these are distractful. There's so many distractions. I'll be so glad when tomorrow comes and goes, Erica. That's a whole other broadcast too.
Another one by itself. But distractions.
But there have been so many distractions that have, this year has been filled with them. Like ever before. Like never before, just distraction after distraction. And so you might have to find that you quiet your life and then intentionally remove those distractions from your life and from your space for a period of time. It might be 10 days. It might be 30 days. Erica was called out for a year. It might be 6 months. We can't tell you what the time frame will be. But I believe that pulling away from the distractions and really going back to just kind of some of the basics. One of my pastors used to say years ago, think about the thing that you do so masterfully that people would pay you to do it. But you enjoy doing it, and you do it at such a level of proficiency and excellence, that you're so passionate about it that you do it for free. Like you're not worried about getting paid to do it. You just want to show up and do it. That's how much you enjoy the work. And you talked about that truth that is at the core. That joy comes from that. I've never met more unhappy people in my life than probably the last several months.
Yes.
And part of it is because we are denying the core, because we're not operating. So there's like, Bishop Jakes says there's nothing more frustrating than potential. So we're carrying around a whole bunch of potential, but we're not pushing out nothing. Nothing is coming out past potential. So denying that core that's going to be a source of the contention and the frustration that you're probably feeling.
Yes.
So Erica, I want you to talk about, values. I'm big on values. And I think that a lot of times we give a lot of lip service to values, but when you think about some of your most cherished values, what are they and how do they show up in your work?
So I'm going to be transparent with you. One of my biggest values in the industry in which we have relationships in, which are business, ministry, marketplace, even in my job space. One of my biggest values is celebrating others. So I have what I call my ministry, right? This Girl I See You. And it was birthed out of that place. The Girl I See You was a time where I was like, God, listen, do you see me? Do you see all of what's going on in my life? And I think every area that God has allowed me to cultivate, relationships, business, whatever you want to call it, it all came out of a need, my own personal need. And so this Girl Got Purpose is a way of me spotlighting not me, but others to say, hey, Listen, girl, you got purpose. I don't care what you've been through, where you've been, what you were told, why they told you. It could be all facts. All of those could be truths. But the matter is, you were created to be and to do here on this side of living. And so celebration is one of my core values. Educating people is a core value, like education, not just book education, because I love, don't get me wrong, I love that aspect of it, but there's so much more. It's a broader I guess, spectrum when we talk about educating, right? Educating ourselves on how to be better, educating ourselves on how to communicate, educate those. It's so much more. And so I would say celebrating is a core. Like I believe that many would thrive if we all learned how to celebrate one another, and the good, the bad,
Yeah.
the downs. That's a big core value.
Yeah. It's crazy, Erica, because I didn't know that, right? So I put these questions together when I was creating the format for this broadcast. And when you said that about celebrating others, that's a place that I'm passionate too about. You know,
Wow.
so every year in March, I have this Women's History Month event called Making History in Hills.
Yeah.
That is created to celebrate women, local women, right here I'm in the Dallas area. So women right here in my backyard that are doing incredible things, that are making an impact. They are showing up and they are doing it. They're not social media famous. They're not
That's good.
a zillion Instagram. Like that's not it. Like it's not a celebrity event. It's not because we clamor towards celebrity because everyone wants to be with someone that they think is bigger and better than they are. That's another broadcast too. But really for that unheralded entrepreneur, unsung hero. And so, when you said that, a part of me just kind of, I was like, oh my God, I love to celebrate others too. Not that I need to be celebrated for me, but I just think that we're in our culture now is to just constantly criticize and constantly play and constantly minimize and to limit and put in those boxes and coffins. Like that's, you're just going to any social media outlet. It's just, the comments, what you see people, the audacity to say and to write about each other. It is unnerving.
Yes, very.
And in a culture, especially where, women are, still being degraded and minimized and all of that, like there's got to be a way to put a positive, there's got to be, something that I can do. My own circle of influence that can bring some positivity. So I'm so excited to hear that and educate mine too. You were talking about Erica's like just teaching how to embrace the growth mindset. I do that a lot, in my
I love that.
It doesn't mean that life is easy or you get it right the first time or that you get all the answers that you want, but just being on that constant path of growth. And for me, to really embrace the growth mindset has been a lifesaver for me because when I come up short in an area, I'm able to say, okay, then that's an identified area of growth. And failure, all those things that just seem like they have some type of finite end and some stamp that, moves your momentum in the other direction. So I love that. So this year has been a lot of things, right? So about 2020, what are 3 things that have made this year a success for you thus far?
Most definitely, I would have to say one of the wins I would take out of 2020 was the momentum to stay in a positive place, right? Like I just didn't let toxic energy. If it was present, I had to remove myself. And so that is a strength. That's a muscle that I like. My husband always talk about wherever peace, that's what I follow. And literally, that's what it's been, even though it's been chaos, right? Even though it's been, a lot of things that could cause mourning or, depression or whatever. I think that in this season, one of the things I'll take away was just the strength to endure, to the endurance kicked in, that endurance. And so one of the other things was how God was able to show up for me and those in my space even in spite of what was going on, right? Because sometimes we're like, God, where you at? Like I saw him in everything, even and I'm gonna be honest, even in the not so good things, I still would see his handprint in it. And so with that, it just assured me that his greatness is beyond what we could ever think. And I would probably say a relationship, right? So for me, it was intentional for me to reach out to others and not text, not, but hey, how you doing? What's going on? Even in my emails that I would send out to, those women that's on my email list, it was more of, hey, I need you to respond. Tell me where you are. How are you doing? Because that's the relationship, the relational side of me that wants to know, not to be nosy, not to be in your business, but to know that if you're not okay, then I know how to take that. And if you are okay, then I know how to do that as well. So I think those were like three things that really grew strong in within me within this time. Like if I didn't trust in a living God, this season truly put me in that place.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I agree. I think there were so many opportunities to move in the other direction of, just being downtrodden and depressed and, just all of the discord and all of the disharmony and, just this, just everything, from the
opportunity for it. It would breathe it. If you allowed it, it would breathe that thing in your life.
Yeah. And I think, when you were talking, I wrote down the word peace. And one of the things that I've done this season has been able to protect peace. And sometimes that means having barriers. Sometimes that means cutting people off when they call you and they want to constantly talk about coronavirus. Sometimes it looks like turning the channel. When the political, the mudslinging is going back and forth between the two parties. Just whatever it is. But it's your space, and then find that people will dump things on you, or put these things. The power of suggestion is powerful.
Yes,
just all these things to you, and then you're there. They're saying, "Well, God, I don't know
where did that come from?
What? Right? Where did that come from? What do I do with that?" Yeah, like you protect your peace. Protect your peace. And when you've worked to create it, I think you are a little more protective of it.
Yes.
So I don't thrive in the dysfunction. I don't thrive in the chaos. Like that's not my happy place, or just the bickering and carrying on. Like I don't. There's no peace. There's no productivity. There's nothing in that place for me. Create it for yourself and then protect it at all costs.
Yes.
So what issues are pressing with you right now when you think about the state of not only our country but really this world? Are there issues that are near and dear to your heart that are really pressing?
I think about a lot of, to be honest, I think more, I don't say much on social media about it more. I'm more private in this area, meaning how I pray, how I talk about it, how I feel about it, not because I don't want to be vocal, but I want to make sure when my words go out that it becomes seed in the ground and it manifests something great, right? And so I think about the Black lives that matter, but not so much the movement, but the lives that matter. And so I think about I was able to take part in this book collaboration that is coming out soon, and it was letters to our Black sons or whatever, like to our Black boys. And so I was like, well, I want to contribute, God, but I want it to be substance. Like I want it to come from a good place, not a mama who throwing dirt, And so I began to think, and then as I began to think, I said, I have a son. What are the top 5 things that you want for him? Right. And so I began to write from that place, from a happy place, from a place of one day I'll see him become this or do this or go here without limits. So that has been my silent cry. That has been as led, I will respond, but what I'm careful of, I don't want my words to go out and not yield good fruit. Because out of desperation, out of anger, out of feeling like, oh my God, is my son, will my son be next? Comes fear, right? And comes frustration. And then you begin to live the way people want you to live, some people, instead of living the way that you were created to live.
Erica, Erica, stop right there. I gotta get in on this. This is so good. I, I'm telling you, I'm like, oh my God, Erica is me and I'm she. Like this thing is crazy. Ditto, ditto, ditto. I believe that even when we are approaching, those areas, like you said, that are just near and dear to our heart, it has to be from a place of love. There are two
Mhm.
that produce everything that we see, feel, touch, and experience, and that's love and fear. And
Yes.
when we are responding, a lot of times, when I ask this question, people have all kinds of causes or things that they are, connected to, or, things that they want to educate, about
Mhm.
because of personal tragedies or things like that. But it has to be from a place of love. And there
Yeah.
are so many trying to effectuate change from a place of fear.
Mhm.
The fear is at the core of it. When we see division, when we see things that are racially charged and racially motivated, at the core of that is fear.
Yes.
Fear lies at the core. And so until you deal with the fear, that's the surface, that's the root. You're dealing with the offspring.
Yes.
You're not going to do anything with the offspring until you get to the root.
Mhm.
So I think it's so important that when we are choosing how to respond to those things, that we do it from a place of power, that
Yes.
we do it from our power seat, that we do it
Mhm.
with our power voice. I see so many that are, and they are, I'm sure they're well intentioned, but they are moving from a place of fear.
Mhm.
There's no love at the core. It's bringing further division and further separation and further disconnection. And so something that started as a good thing has become just as problematic as some of the other things that we see. And
Yes.
I is, when we think about social justice and, a lot of the changes and things like that that we want to see and experience in this life, my goal, my thought around that is this, that we cannot be collectively, we can't do a collective experience, something that we don't embody and possess individually.
Come on.
And so
Mhm.
that is why it's so important that we go back to that mirror that we started talking about at the top of the broadcast.
Yes.
In the time and reflection. Like I can't show up in a group or in a space, in a collective space, and bring anything of real value until I've done my own work. And
Yes.
so I think I think that is just so important. And I think that is a missing link. It's not a very
Mhm.
popular message. It's not very, people don't take to it too kindly, but that is the truth.
Yes.
And truth has a way of separating and stinging and dividing sometimes. So,
Yes.
but I love that. I would love to support that work. I want to hear more about it when it's getting ready to release, which is our last question. Talk a little bit about what's next for Erica Michelle
Mm.
Ruin. I know you're probably already thinking about 2021 and all of that. So talk to viewers about what they can expect next from you.
Yes. Well, here's what's happening. So She Talks Purpose Empowerment podcast. That is a noun factor, and I'm taking it slow. It's my baby, if that makes sense. So I'm really, really going to be horning in on utilizing that platform to again spotlight other women, right? And really talk about this thing we call purpose, this place, this destination, whatever, however they define it. That's one of the questions I always ask, when you hear the word purpose, how do you define purpose? Because I want us to understand that we don't have to have the same definition as long as we have an understanding. And so in January, actually, January the 23rd and 24th, is going to be this Girl Got Purpose Empowerment Summit. So it was scheduled for May 1st and 2nd. And of course, COVID-19 came, and I was okay with that. I was able to shift the women that are taking part, was able to shift. The participants were able to shift, and so we're going to utilize it as a bang into 2021. What better way to walk into your new year, right? With new everything, new thoughts, new ways, new, processes and systems, because it's developed to empower, right, women in their conception to at least 5 years of doing business, ministry, their gifts into the marketplace, all of that. We want to feed those things for them, not more content so that you can just be on content overload, but more of strategies and substance that you can go walk out today, that day, and begin to implement now. That's what I'm like, it's a now season. And so that is what's really going on in my now circle. So I'm excited about that, because that's going to be something big in this aspect of me taking it from in-person live and still giving it a spirit of excellence in the virtual realm, right? Still giving the women something to look forward to and know that it's not just another virtual summit, that I believe this summit is going to give them new identity. And that's what we talk about, that season, right? That season of change, that identity. We get different pieces of identity through that time.
Yeah. Oh my God. So excited. So excited. Just so many uncertainties still, I'm still struggling about, next year about live.
I know.
Like, I don't know. I don't even think I'll make a decision until January.
Yeah, you don't have to. I know you guys took a while before you made the decision about the one in 2020. Because I follow you, I'll be all in your business and stuff, right? And so I saw that you really were at peace when you guys decided, you and your team decided that this is what we're not gonna do.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Changing so rapidly, it's kind of hard to talk about March today, because there is just no way to really think that far in advance. And so I don't know, I'm still on the fence, but I'll be making some decisions and things like that. So I've got to get down to Houston to hug your neck.
Yes, please, we would love to have you.
All of that. So it has just been so great to be here to share this space with you tonight, to celebrate you and the work that you're doing, to celebrate the brand and the way that you are using what you have, where you are, how you are now. You just talked about a now moment. And if there are closing words that I could offer to those that are watching or even watching the replay later on, next is now. And so many times we, next, when I get there, next is, this is now. Like next, this is the now moment. And the reality is all that you have is the beauty of the present moment. And so don't become a prisoner to your past. Don't become a prisoner to your future, because we can do that. And so take advantage of the now moment. Think about the way that you can show up and make a big impact from where you are. There's something that you can be doing right now that's closer to that purpose, that is unfolding that purpose before you with time. And so now. So Erica Michelle, it has been great. Thank you for being in this. Happy holidays. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time on PROPEL.
Good night.